The Loneliest Creatures in the World by Touches Like the Sun. This should be the final part, part 6. What are you doing here? His mother asks coldly. She's a frail woman with eyes that are vacant and haunting. Why? Isn't this my house too? Do I need to have a reason to be here? Dazai smiles wryly. You left, she says. I thought that would be the last I see of you. Ah, well, Dazai says, sorry to disappoint. Leave, she says, before he wakes up and sees you here. You uprooted everything when his only heir disappeared overnight. He was so furious he tore your room apart. Dazai says, putting a finger to his lip contemplatively. Then I suppose he should have drank and beat me less, no? If he was that desperate for me to stay. Who's there? Dazai would like to say he doesn't flinch. He would like to say he does not feel ice flood his veins. He would like to say his heart is still and calm. His father stands at the highest step, staring down at him with eyes that are widening with dawning realization. Shuji, he whispers. After all these years, boy. Father, he says, steady and calm, with perhaps too much practice. He learned it here first. He learned it even better on the streets. Why are you here? You're both such wonderful parents, truly. No highs and hellos, no how are yous. Don't you care? Dazai's voice is mocking. That your only son finally— You stopped being our son the day you walked out. His father sneers. You were the heir. You had responsibilities. And don't be mistaken. Did you think we couldn't have children after you? It's not like it hasn't occurred to Dazai, but it is truly something else when, as if the universe had heard his words, a young boy, 7 years old at the most, comes out, rubbing his eye. What's going on, Ma? Bunji, his mother calls, in a voice that Dazai freezes. He didn't think his mother was capable of sounding like that. Like a mother. Like the sweet and gentle tinkling of that music box in his hands. What are you doing out of bed, my dear? She says, putting her hands on his shoulders. She brushed her hand over Bunji's hair. Dazai's younger brother, technically, though it didn't feel like it. It was surreal, as if he's watching a dream, a hallucination that's taunting him. He is that child once more, watching her. He is sleeping outside her locked door again. What was so wrong with me? Dazai asks, very quietly. He did not mean to ask it out loud, but he couldn't help himself. He felt Chuuya's eyes on the side of his face. He wishes he didn't say anything. His mother's eyes suddenly raised to his. For a moment, Dazai thinks he sees something. He could have mistaken it as guilt, but just as quickly it disappears. You were a strange child, she says, looking down at Bunji's head. I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't feel you as mine. I couldn't love you. You seemed so strange and ugly to me. Your mind was so strange, and your eyes were like the devil's. You never seemed human to me, and your ability, it's dangerous and cold to us ability users. Whenever I touched you, I was even less of myself than I already felt. The first time I tried to hold you, I felt so empty. Dazai looks down at the music box in his hands. It doesn't hurt or anything, he supposes. He killed all such human feelings when he was young, because he was tired of his sadness and pain and fear. He suffered only because he felt. I see, Dazai says, smiling thinly. Then I suppose that's why you gave me this. He raises the music box, waves it. Because you were trying. When he raises his eyes to meet hers, all he finds is blankness, a lack of recognition, confusion. I never gave you that. You were so small, I bet you don't even remember it. You were her whole world. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Nothing hurts. Nothing ever does. It was supposed to be a kindness. That was what Asuka thought it was, but it did not feel so kind now, standing there foolishly with the music box in his hands, staring at her empty face. Leave, his father says with a snarl. You are not needed anymore. Perhaps Mother should ask you how many women you've slept with over the years, Dazai says, staring at the music box in his hand, turning it around carelessly. He watches the pair spin with flat eyes. There's a beast inside his chest writhing for ruin. The silence that comes over the whole house is heavy and long. What? He hears her voice whisper, shocked and choked. You little bastard! Then there are running footsteps, crazed, and Dazai looks up in time to see his father's hands reaching for his throat. He staggers back. He's a child again, with his drunk father's hands wrapping around his throat, thinking, I think he's going to really kill me this time. Thinking unbiddenly, that wouldn't be so bad. The hands never come. There is a glow of red. His father is held in place, and he is making noises of exertion, fighting against gravity. Chya is pushing Dazai behind his back. What is this? Who's this brat? Don't touch him! Chya snarls. He flings his father back, in a way that likely must hurt, but wouldn't injure him. I'll let you off the hook because you're his dad, but I won't next time if you try again. Chya's fingers are slipping into Dazai's around him. It makes it bearable. This house. These people. Your birth, his mother says, her eyes heavy and pained, was a mistake, Shuji. There are times I wish they never brought your heartbeat back. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't. Nothing hurts. Nothing ever really does. He suffered only because he felt. I see, Dazai says with an unfazed smirk. Well, good talk, mother, father. He bows mockingly more than anything. Let's go, Chya. He waves his fingers over his shoulder as he turns and begins to walk away. He stops by the lit fireplace. His eyes are hollow as they look down at the music box in his hand. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he throws it into the fire and continues walking past towards the exit. All the way back, the walk to the station, the train ride, the taxi drive back to their current residence, he feels Chuya's glances at him. He feels his small finger curl around his. Dazai is so numb he barely feels it. He feels Chuya curl up around him at night, holding him from behind. Dazai stares up at the ceiling in the dark. Hours later, when his eyes are burning from exhaustion, but sleep does not come, and his own circulating thoughts begin to bore and irritate him, Dazai turns into Chuya's loose grasp. He stares at his face. He reaches up a hand and takes a strand of curls between his fingers and pulls it behind his ear. His thoughts go a bit quiet. He tries to focus on Chuya's breathing, the feeling of his arms around him, his warmth. The numbness makes it hard to seep in. His chest feels so cold and empty. But even then, it's the only thing that makes him feel anything. Chuya's the only thing left that makes him feel anything. But all the things in life are temporary and fickle. All things in life are fleeting. Nothing is promised forever. The beach is deserted and quiet this time of winter, with only the two of them here. If there's one place Dazai can confidently say is his favorite, it's the beach. There's something about the sound of the waves, the roaring sea that makes calm wash over him. Something about the water running over his feet that soothes his thoughts. He always thought this should be where he dies, in the end. He supposes it's a little better to bring Chya here instead, though, to show this to him. Take my hand, Dazai says, even though he's already taking Chuya's hand in his and carefully trying to lead him towards the water. He has made him take his sneakers and socks off. He hasn't forgotten that Chya is terrified of water, but he does think Chya can stand to face it a little bit now. He does think it would be nice for Chya to start associating something better with water. Dazai, Chya says, fear already creeping into his voice. He jerks back before the water could touch him, and starts trying to pull Dazai back from it too. Trying to pull hard against his grip to get away. Stop, don't be an asshole. Chuya. Dazai murmurs gently. It's a voice that can almost make people do anything he asks. Chuya, it's okay. It's okay, come. Chuya makes a strangled noise between his quickening breaths, a hitched breath, his terrified gaze fixed on the vast, endless sea. Quickly he tries to turn back again. No, let go of me, you bastard. I don't want... Oh, Samo, please. Dazai tugs him back again, both hands gripping his biceps. He forces on, just keeping Chuya where he is. Eventually, the waves will come and reach them. Shh. He whispers. Shh, just keep your eyes on me. Don't look out at the ocean, okay? Just keep your eyes on me. Does Chya trust me? And, oh, the way Chya stares with his wide eyes at him for a minute, his breath stuttering and erratic, before Dazai feels his whole body begin to melt against him after. I'll keep Chya safe, Dazai promises. So, Chya keeps his eyes on him, as the first wave comes over their feet. Chya flinches with a hitched breath, but Dazai holds him still and whispers, It's okay, keep your eyes on me, over and over again. The wave crashes over their feet. Dazai grips Chya steady, one hand coming up to his waist. The other wave is a bit stronger, enough to tip them both off their feet and stumble a bit. Dazai smiles down at him, and keeps holding him steady whenever the wave threatens to pull his footing out from under him. Eventually, by the 20th wave, the fear has started to fade from Chya's eyes and face. It would, of course, be a long time before Chya can go any further than this, but for now it's okay. His fingers grapple to hold onto Dazai as he struggles against another wave. His eyes stay on Dazai's face, not straying for even a second. Chya starts to laugh a little, his brows raised and his grin taking up his whole face, as if surprised by his delight of the sensation that he can probably absorb better now that the fear is lessened. Dazai puts his forehead down to his, smiling slightly. The weather is cold, forming mist as they breathe. The birds overhead sing as they go home. The day I found Chya, I was going to end my life. That's what he was walking towards that day when he heard the explosion. He wouldn't have made it another year if he hadn't met Chuuya that day. He was sure he would be dead. He had stopped believing he would ever find a reason to keep living, to keep going. And then came along Chuuya. Fiery, beautiful Chuuya. Dazai doesn't see his face. It's more that he feels it. The air has become heavy, the light is dimmed. His body has become very still against his hands. The sun is lowering onto the horizon, coloring them golden. The breeze blows through them, rustling their hair and clothes. But why, Osamu? Chuuya's voice is but a whisper, breathless. Life is so beautiful. Dazai draws back and looks into Chuuya's face. For a moment he thinks he can believe him, just for a moment. Then Dazai brushes back the hair at Chuuya's temples behind his ears, to move it out of the way. Then he takes his face between his hands and kisses his forehead. It lingers, sweet and long. Chuuya's hands come up to his wrists. When Dazai moves his head back, Chuuya's eyes are already following his face, right on his eyes. Chuuya's face is wiped clean in the cold air, and he looks years younger. Dazai's been feeling the doubts creep in for days. But Chuuya is smart and strong, as powerful as a beautiful storm. He has everything he needs, and he will survive. I don't understand why your mother said you weren't human. Chuuya says, a general and soft cushion between his brows. There's so much feeling in your eyes right now, looking back at me. Chya does not seem to grasp the fact that they are only ever full of feeling when they are looking back at him. Another small wave runs over their bare feet. There's the sound of the sea, rushing against the shore. Dazai smiles gently down at him. Eat lots of crepes and crabs, he says, holding Chuuya's face as if he's precious, because he is, to him. Don't miss the sunrise in the mornings, and the sunset in the evenings. Feel the warmth and the wind in your hair. Dance when there's nice music, and make sure you feel every word of the song. Pet all of the cats and dogs you see. Go to the arcade and carnivals and art museums. Go see everything that looks interesting and good to you. And when you come to the ocean, make sure you feel the sand between your toes, and the water run over your feet, just like this. Beautiful things are made for people as beautiful as you. The world is made for people like you. Life suits you, and you belong here, and all of it belongs to you in my eyes. The world is yours, Chya. Dazai whispers, so live. I loved seeing you live. I love you. Chya stares up at him for a long moment, and Dazai stares back. his gentle smile held in place. He can see it in his eyes, a kind of worry, a sense that something isn't quite right. "What's going on, Osamu?" Chuuya asks, so quietly his voice is barely there, nearly lost in the winds. It tousles up his hair, wisps them into his face, aflame in the twilight. The sky is beginning to darken, now a deep orange-yellow, casting shadows and creating silhouettes out of all things in the distance. He takes in every detail of Chuuya's lovely face, the tendrils of his red curls framing it, swaying softly in the breeze, and his ocean eyes reflecting the fading sun. He should like to remember it. He should like it to be his very last thought. Dazai turns to look at the horizon, where the sun is more than half covered by it. "Nee, Chya, look at the sunset. It's quite beautiful, isn't it?" Chuya's eyes draw away, as if he has to forcefully tear them away from him. He's mostly just humoring him. It's enough. But Dazai stands there, just long enough to watch Chuuya as always, and lose himself in the sight. Always, they woke up every morning in the vacation house so they could watch the sunrise, and sat out on the balcony to watch the sun go down. Always, Chuuya's hand reached for his after a while, overwhelmed yet still fixated. Live enough for me too, because I couldn't do it. When Chya will reach for his hand today, he will come up empty. There will be nothing but the winter breeze in his place. And when he will look beside him, when he will frantically turn his head this way and that, stumble around in a circle, there will be no one there. The first thing Dazai realizes as consciousness returns to him is that he can't move. His arms are held down tightly to something, covered snugly in bandages. They sting horribly from the deep cuts he made, sitting against a dumpster in an alleyway, with the glass shard of a broken bottle in his hand. He can hear the beeping of a machine, the rhythm of his own heartbeats. There's something in his nose, a nasal cannula. There's warmth over his hand, familiar, a small hand gripping tightly. The disappointment and anguish bears down on him horribly, at having woken up. His eyes are closed, turning his head away, lips pressed tight. His breath shudders, erratic, and he waits for anger that should come at Chuuya saving him, at still being alive, but it doesn't come. All he feels is exhausted, and disappointed, and sad. All he feels, as always, is numb. It takes him some time to open his eyes. He knows the look he'll find on Chuuya's face. He can already feel his hurt suffocating the room. Even knowing this, when he finally does manage to muster up the energy to open up his eyes and see his face, he stops breathing at the expression that meets him. Chuuya's face is set, brows furrowed over his eyes that are wide and stung red and bloodshot. There is as much anger there as terror and pain. "I flew over the entire city looking for you." Dazai doesn't know what to say except, "You shouldn't have," even though he knows that's the last thing Chya wants to hear. The truth is that he doesn't really regret it. Dazai has never pretended to be selfless or considerate of anyone's feelings, especially not when he believes he has every right to end his life whenever he wishes, because it's his. He didn't get to choose if he wanted to be born, so why shouldn't he get to choose if he wanted to die? He wanted to die. He lived his entire life wanting to die. And isn't that a waste? What is the point of such a life? Why should he continue on if he can see past its illusions, if he has found no reason to live that would last him forever? Abruptly, Chuuya stands up, his body tensing in anger. His breathing is hard, and he has his back to Dazai, trying to gain composure. "Why?" Chuuya turns back around after a while. His eyes are wide and frenzied, red-rimmed, as if he has been driving himself crazy for a while. Dazai doesn't know how long he's been out. "Why would you want to die so badly, so young? Is it what happened there at your house? Is that—" "No," Dazai says, hoarse and croaky from disuse, because his desire to die comes from many more things than his mother believing his birth was a mistake. All it did was remind him of that fact, that's all. "It's because I can't find a reason to live. I can't." He starts to cough. Quickly, Chuuya reaches for the cup of water he was likely instructed to give to Dazai. He helps him drink it. lets him regain his breaths. I don't know why I should live, he continues eventually, with slight breathlessness. I don't like this world, or this life. I don't see any value in it, Chuuya. Then why? Chya grits out, nearly a sob. Why show me the whole world, all those things, if you don't care about any of it? Because you are so beautiful. All there is the sound of Dazai's heart beating on the monitor. Chya does not seem to know what to say, staring back at him with wreckage and helplessness in his eyes. Because you could see it, Dazai says in a soft, calm voice. And I liked seeing you. I loved seeing you live. I love you. You were going to leave me. Chuya's voice is strained and small. I don't even know half the things I'm supposed to. I don't. The world is so fucking big and strange and scary, and I would have missed you so much. You would have survived on your own, Dazai says. You have the ability, even the intelligence, no matter how many jabs I take at it. The truth at the very core of it is that Dazai believes Chuuya only wants him to stay because he needs him to understand the world. It would not make any sense otherwise, of course, for him to want Dazai to stay with him that badly. It's nothing Dazai minds, however, because didn't he also use Chuuya in that way? Didn't he do all he could to see every emotion on Chuuya's beautiful face, all that joy and wonder and anger and annoyance and sweetness, to see his humanity, to see him live, because it gave him something to keep living for, because he liked it? Dazai's heart is empty and cold. He does not have much warmth and goodness to offer. When he thinks of himself, he feels like an hallucination, unreal. There's nothing inside him, so there's nothing to care about. That, and the fact that, for the most part, all relationships are transactional. People only want you around if you have something to give. I would have, Chya says thickly, and Dazai's eyes widen in surprise, shock at the answer. He said with full certainty, full faith in himself. There's a burn in Chuya's eyes. He sniffs, swiping the back of his hand under his pink-stung nose. I would have survived, I know that. Don't you get it? If you're gone, I can't go watch the sunrise or sunset, or listen to a song or dance, or feel warmth. And the wind in my hair, or go to arcades and carnivals and art museums. I can't go to the ocean because all of it means you to me. And all of Chuya's first memories have his face in them. And maybe, despite knowing this already, Dazai didn't really understand. He did it all, thinking only of himself, of what it made him feel or what it gave him. He did not quite think as much about what it would mean for Chuuya that he was there, that it was his hand holding Chuuya's throughout. Did not feel himself as anything more than a specter in Chuuya's experiences, his life, easy to fade away eventually. So you can't die on me, all right? The tears are falling down his cheeks. You are there in everything for me, and everything I'll look at will remind me of you, Osamu. You are the whole world to me. Dazai doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what it is he's even feeling. But all the memories he made with Chya seemed different. Like he was a real part of them. Like he meant something. He could see himself standing next to Chya, instead of only seeing Chya in every memory, as if he's all there is. And you say you don't have a reason to live. His voice is seemingly growing frantic, as if he's gasping for anything he could to convince Dazai. Chya wipes his wrists under his eyes quickly. He has still not yet really learned to keep such expressions hidden from the world, how to control it. That you don't like this world, but there was still a part of you that thought this world was worth showing me. There are things here I should be seeing. You're the one that showed me how beautiful it is. Chuuya, you said you'd help me find out my birthday, he whispers, and Dazai knows now he has enough of a heart that it can ache, because he does not really like seeing tears in his eyes. The quiver of his lips he is trying to control by pressing them together. You said you'd help me learn who I am. Chuuya, Dazai closes his eyes, swallowing. He sees himself sitting alone in the back of empty cinemas, playing games by himself at the arcades, spending hours at art museums with a dead heart, trying to hold on, tossing and turning in futons and vacation home beds and cold, dirty floors all across the city, wishing his brain would quiet already. Really did try to keep living. I lived for you for a whole year, too, didn't I? I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. He sounds so lost and small to his own ears. Feels like it, too. Wake up every morning and watch the sunrise with me. It's so quiet that it becomes a croak, only mouthed by the last word. Chuuya says it as if it's that simple. If anyone else were saying this, Dazai would laugh. But it's Chuuya, and Dazai has done this already for a year. Maybe he can do it for another. There were days he waited desperately for them to end, because they were exhausting and all he wanted to do was fall asleep in Chuuya's arms at night if he could, or just lay in the silence of the night next to him, counting his freckles or playing with his hair as he slept. And then he woke up the next morning with Chuuya's nose against his cheek, and it was bearable. He had to do it all over again, but at least it was bearable. It's not a foolproof solution, but maybe that's all he has to do for now, every day. All he has to do is wake up and make sure he wakes up every morning with Chuuya. All he has to do is get out of bed so they can watch the sunrise together, even if nothing else. He doesn't know how long it will last, but he can't deny that the only thing he will regret about dying is that he will no longer be able to experience Chuuya. His life is a waste. He will never stop believing that. His life feels like sleeping outside locked doors and bruising hands around his throat, and your birth was a mistake, and not being able to sleep at night because all of that was wrong until he killed his heart and suffering away. Because living while dead inside is a kind of agony all on its own. His life is hanging on to cinema films and paintings and video games desperately, even though he doesn't know why. His life is lonely and boring and pathetic. His life is without a purpose to live, only small reasons to stall his end. But your birth was a mistake, Shuji. There were times I wished they never brought your heartbeat back. I'm glad you were born. Happy birthday. And your ability. It's dangerous and cold to us ability users. Chya kept holding Dazai to keep himself from floating away, taking his hand whenever his emotions became too much. Your eyes were like the devil's. You never seemed human to me. I don't understand why your mother said you weren't human. There's so much feeling in your eyes right now, looking back at me. The first time I tried to hold you, I felt so empty. Chya curling up against his side every night, sleeping with his arms wrapped around him from behind, shifting half over him and placing his head on his chest. Whenever I touched you, I was even less of myself than I already felt. Chuuya was always reaching for him, always touching him, relaxing as soon as he does, as if something in him went quiet. You were her whole world. You were the whole world to me. Okay, Dazai says, softly. Chuuya blinks, straightening. The light is beginning to come to his eyes, his lashes still clinging together. He passes the back of his hand over them. Yeah? Yeah, okay. Chya persuaded me. Dazai smiles slightly. I've decided not to die. Chya stares at him. He stares at him, his chest heaving slightly, and then he breathes a watery laugh. Relief so painful it may as well be a kind of pain just in its own right. And then he's on him, wrapping his arms around Dazai's neck tightly, more on top of his chest with his face buried into it. Dazai can't hold him back, what with his arms strapped down. He can feel a coolness seep through his shirt, and he can't see Chuya's face anymore, but his head is craned down, trying to see as much of him as he could. He doesn't know how long this will last, but for now, the boy of the past who sat alone in the back of empty cinemas, desperately hanging on, waiting for a reason to live, now sits next to a boy in a hospital gown who does not know his past or himself, to whom the world is a stranger. A boy who has been hurt in the most horrific ways he can't remember. They smile at each other, the loneliest creatures in the world. The door opens. In steps a tall man with long black hair, clad in a doctor's coat. His purple eyes come to rest on Chya, then Dazai. Ah, I see you're awake. The man smiles. I'm Dr. Ogai. Mori Ogai. How are we feeling today? The end. This is one of my favorite fanfics, and go show love to the author for giving me permission to podfic it.